Hey there, everybody watching on the replay. So glad to have you joining us. If you like what you see, then feel free to tap anywhere on the screen. And I love having those hearts come through, knowing I'm giving good content to people and really helping you learn stuff that's valuable to you. And welcome. I know we've got a couple of people starting to join. We are talking today about Evernote. Hi, EIP Dots. Hi there, how's it going? Love to have you here, welcome. We're talking today about Evernote, which is one of those amazing tools. I'm going to actually turn the camera around here today and talk directly to you guys. So, Amanda, hi, how's it going? Glad to have you here. So we're talking today about Evernote, and my name is Erin Elizabeth Wells. If we've not had a chance to meet before, hi Susan, how's it going? Nice to have you here. Welcome. And Evernote is a personal love of mine, but I'll be quite honest, it's only been something that I have been like massively using for about a year now. So while I set up an Evernote account back in 2008. It wasn't until this last year that I really figured it out, understanding Evernote. Has it been a challenge for you too, Amanda? Has that been something that you've been trying to work your way through a little bit? I'm curious, because I've talked to a lot of different people, and many of them have accounts, but they aren't using them, or they only use them every once in a while. So I know for me, for a lot of years, as I said, I set up an account in 2008. And I used it to capture recipes and nothing else. Yes. Yeah. Hi, Jordan. How's it going? Welcome. Glad to have you here. So for those of you who have not yet had a chance to get to know me, hi, Zach. How's it going? Welcome. Glad to have you. My name is Erin Elizabeth Wells. I'm the intentionality expert. I'm a productivity strategist. I scope on a daily basis on topics related to productivity, time management, everything else. Don't worry about the... Honey, between the fingers and the autocorrect and all of that kind of stuff, all of us are just trying to do the best we can. So no worries, Amanda, that's fantastic. So that's what I scope about, is productivity stuff, all of basically time management, tasks, email, etc. And today, I'm glad to have you guys on here because we're going to talk more about Evernote specifically. In terms of what it's good for, what it's not good for, and basically some use cases of kind of how I've learned to implement it effectively. Amanda, thanks so much for sharing that on Twitter. I'm really grateful to you. That's really wonderful. Thanks for the hearts too. So for anybody who might be, hi Nutkins, I know I've seen you here before. I'm trying to remember your name, but it's not coming to me, so help me out here. Anyway, for those of you who may be new to the land of Periscope, I mean, a lot of us are brand new. I've been Periscoping for just about a week now. You can tap anywhere on the screen, and that gives me hearts. And hearts are just like confirmation, yes, I'm enjoying this, there's good content, and I love it. It feeds me. So please feel free to, if I'm giving you good stuff, feel free to tap. Flores, thank you. Hello, welcome. Hey, Jan, how's it going? And otherwise, if this is information that's been useful to you, feel free to, if you're on an Android device, swipe up. If you're on iOS, swipe left to right. Helen! Thank you, Helen. Appreciate it. Helen, welcome, welcome. Android, swipe up. iOS, swipe right to left. And share this with your followers or share this on Twitter so that other people get a chance to hear it. And make sure you follow me for the future. So I'm happy to answer your questions about Evernote. I know some of you, like Amanda was saying at the very beginning, maybe have an account but haven't quite figured out how to use it as effectively as you could. Hi Tanya, how's it going? Welcome, glad to have you here. I actually am an Evernote business certified consultant. Zach, 240 hearts, is that your pledge? Is that what you're getting me to? I know I'm really close to 5,000 hearts. So if you guys want to push me over that edge, that would be freaking phenomenal. I'd be really grateful to you. That'd be fantastic. Hi, Blaine. How's it going? Welcome. Glad to have you here. Already done. Score. How about we go for another 1,000 on top of that or more? So you want to push it over 6,000? That would be phenomenal. Tech Bloke, nice to have you here. All right, so we're talking about Evernote, and basically I'm happy to have this be a whole conversation. Hello! Happy to have this be a whole conversation around what are your questions about Evernote? Where have you gotten stuck? How do you love to use it too? I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a dive behind the screen and get a chance to see how I'm using it. Is there an easy way to email Evernote with stuff, as in add stuff via email, Susan? The answer is yes. Every Evernote user has an account. They just got a new CEO. Useful thing to know, absolutely. They just got a new CEO is something I didn't know. I actually know a guy who works for Evernote. He's a fellow organizing colleague and buddy of mine named Josh Zirkle, but I haven't had a chance to catch up with him recently, so I would have gotten that news, I'm sure. So, Susan, let me answer your question. Every Evernote account has an email address attached to it that if you were to take your email, so you're writing an email or whatever, or you received an email that you want to make sure goes into your Evernote, then basically you can just find your Evernote. Let me see if I can actually show it to you. Let me see if I can give you an example of that. And then Zach, what is Evernote used for? We're going to dive into that in detail today. So give me a second. Let me answer Susan's question. Then I will give you a better idea of how I'm using it and how it might be useful to you in the future. So first thing, let me acknowledge, I'm on Evernote for Mac. Evernote's going to look slightly differently depending on what platform you are using it on. So if it doesn't look exactly the same to you, that might be because you're on a PC. That might be because you're using the Evernote web version as opposed to this is the Mac app. So if that's the case, don't panic. They basically are trying to design the user interface so that it looks as similar to the platform it's on as possible. So I was going to try and answer Susan's question in a little more detail. I was trying to remind myself where I need to go. But basically, here we go. Email notes too. So if you go to your account summary or your account settings, Susan, I probably shouldn't be actually showing you all that information because I don't want you guys adding stuff to my Evernote. But basically in the account summary or settings, you'll be able to find something that says email notes to. That is the magic email address that, thanks for the hearts, I really appreciate that. The magic email address that allows you to send stuff via email into your Evernote account. And there are a lot of little extra features to that, so you can send it, you can have it tagged in certain ways and such. I'm not going to go into detail on that today because I want to make sure we cover kind of the original plan, but Susan, if you want more on that, you can DM me on Twitter, dm@chosencourse.com, or if you guys want, you can also send me a text. If anybody wants to write this in the chat so people have it, you can send me a text at 978-238-8211. 978-238-8211. I'm happy to answer questions. TechLook, web clipper, yes. Thank you, TechLook. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So feel free to send me a text there, or if you want to give me a call, that's fine. I'll answer the questions as best as I can. Because I love this tool. I'm actually an Evernote business certified consultant. I was part of their first class pushing that through last summer. And so I have a pretty deep knowledge as far as Evernote's concerned. Nice, yeah. It's good stuff. So part of what I have done for clients in the past is help them implement Evernote into their business and into running their business effectively. So let me dive in a little bit more to what I wanted to focus on today, which is really kind of how can you use Evernote? Like what are the possible use cases, both personal and for business, that might be valuable for you? So let me start with the personal side because, well, we all have a personal life, right? We all got something going on in our lives. Thank you so much for the hearts. Really appreciate it. So personally, I have used this, as I said, my first usage of Evernote on a consistent basis was to use it for recipes. So, I'd find a recipe online somewhere and I'd use that Evernote web clipper we were talking about before. And basically the web clipper is a little plug-in that you can put into pretty much any of the major, what's the word I'm looking for? Any of the major browsers. That's the word I'm looking for. And you can find yourself on a particular page. Thank you, browser. See, I got there eventually. And you find yourself on a website or an article that you really love, or as I was talking about, a recipe that you want to hold on to. And the web clipper basically just allows you to automatically clip that whole page or just a section of that page directly to a specific Evernote notebook. Just sent 1,000 hearts. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Take a look. Chrome, Firefox, IE, all has Evernote extensions. Yes, exactly. So most of the major browsers, I think Safari does as well. Most of the major browsers have the extensions built into them, and it makes it so much easier. So, here, how about I give you a little quick demo on how it works for those of you who may be less familiar. So I'm going to go into my Feedly here. Continue with Google. And basically you can find an article. Here's one that looks interesting. 7 challenges successful people overcome. So the land of Forbes, and we have to get past their thought of the day advertisement. And okay, so 7 challenges successful people overcome. Looks like an interesting article. So if I wanted to clip this to my Evernote, what I would do is I've got the Evernote plugin up here in the corner. I click on the little elephant, and it pulls up this little pop-up box. And you can change the title if you want. Otherwise, it generally just puts the title of whatever the page is. And then you have several options to clip: the article alone, which kind of takes out some of the stuff along the sides; the simplified article, which, as you can see, what that's literally doing is just taking the stuff in the center column and nothing else, or the full page, or to do a screenshot. And this is one that I sometimes really like if I'm doing a swipe file. So, for instance, perhaps you are doing some research for a website redesign, or you're doing a swipe file of people's opt-ins, or something along those lines. If you're in the entrepreneurial space, you're trying to see, how are people designing their webinar landing pages, that kind of stuff. You see something you really like. Sometimes the best thing to do would be to do a screenshot and be able to see the exact image as it's laid out. John, do they have an app? Yes, Evernote has apps for the iPhone, for Android, for iPad, basically all of the major platforms, which means that your content is available on every possible location. So I love that because literally I can pull up whatever I need from my, it's like having your entire file box, your entire file drawer with you no matter where you are on the planet, provided you have data access. So, hi, Aldrima. How's it going? Nice to have you here. Welcome. So let me just check in for those of you who have joined late. My name is Erin Elizabeth Wells. Hi, how's it going? Glad to have you here. My name is Erin Elizabeth Wells. I'm the intentionality expert and a productivity strategist. Today we're talking about Evernote do's and don'ts, specifically how to use it effectively and how to really get the most out of it. So I just gave a short demo of the Evernote web clipper. It is one of my favorite features for just grabbing great stuff on the web that you want to hold on to for later. So what's most important to understand about Evernote is that it is kind of like a digital notebook. So all those little notes that you were writing down in the notebooks that we all used to carry around for years, that's what Evernote can be great for, is capturing all of those notes. So for instance, with some of my corporate clients, we talk about, hi there, nice to have you here. We talk about capturing the notes from their meetings directly into Evernote. I do that with some of my executives and my entrepreneurial clients as well, so that it becomes kind of the replacement for that notebook that they used to carry around, because they're able to capture it often on their iPad or on their laptop when they're in a meeting. What Evernote is not great for, in my opinion, is task management. And this is one of those things where I see a lot of people are trying to kind of move this functionality into Evernote. And it's not that it can't do it. Essentially there are things, they have this very cute little checkbox feature so that you can create a note. Here, let me show you what I'm talking about. So I can create a note, and if I wanted to say, here's my task list, here's my task list, and here's task, let me see. There's a little thing up at the top here, which, if we can get it to zoom in appropriately for you guys, you can click the little checkbox and it'll create a checkbox. Then you can say task number 1, and then here's task number 2 and task number 3. But essentially, all it's doing is giving you a checkbox. It's giving you no other features, no other functionality. There's no way to assign tasks to others. There's no, if you put these tasks in a whole bunch of different notes, so it's like, here are the tasks from this meeting, and here are the tasks from that meeting, and here are the tasks from this other meeting, there's no central place to look for all of your tasks. So that's why, personally, I'm not a fan of using Evernote for task management. I think that there are much, much better tools out there for tasks. So one of the productivity tips that, if you take nothing else away from today, separate your notes from your tasks. Put all of your tasks into one place together and keep your notes in one place together. I use Trello. That's great. Yes, Trello is one of the ones that I find really great, particularly for people who are very visual. So let me mess around here. Whoops. I find Trello to be really great for people who are really visual because it creates these little visual cards. Personally, what I use and what I'm a fan of is Asana, asana.com, A-S-A-N-A, if somebody wants to type that into the chat for people. Asana.com is my favorite tool. I find it to be really powerful, and particularly because I have a team that I'm working with, it's really great for sharing tasks across a number of people. Thank you, Amanda. I really appreciate that. And being able to make sure that you can follow the flow of tasks when, like, for instance, in our editorial calendar, in our blog, every single blog post might have several different people involved in getting it from, beginning to end. So there's the member of my team who's writing it, but then there's my virtual assistant who's helping with getting it up onto the blog, doing the editing of it, finding an image for it, all that kind of stuff. I might do a review of it so that, if there are any changes I want to make before it goes live. I don't usually. Honestly, I don't. My team is pretty good, and I trust my VA to know what's appropriate and not. So I don't often do that. But at the same time, it allows us to really pass that ball back and forth in a more effective way. So that's, in my opinion, the one thing Evernote isn't as good at as some of the other task management tools out there. But here's what I think it's great at. It's great for personal stuff. I use it for recipes. I did use it for wedding planning. I've been married 2 years, so I still have that notebook. It's got a bunch of stuff in it. But for a major event planning, essentially, of any kind of anything like that, you're capturing, images or ideas or whatever. It's great for that. If you're comfortable with it, you can use it for medical stuff. It's all about, are you comfortable with having that information on the cloud? That's a personal decision. But it's been helpful for me and my husband from time to time, where it's like, okay, here's the information from this doctor. You're going to need to make an appointment with him, blah, blah, blah. And it makes it an easy place for him to be able to find that information and for me to be able to find that information. Household records. So we were having some challenges with our internet service, with Comcast. And I started to create a note that was basically just logging all of the problems we were having so that, and all of the interactions we were having. Yes, thank you for the hearts. Anybody else having problems with Comcast? That's been my challenge. In fact, they're coming today. So if we're having any connectivity issues, that would be why. And they're supposed to be coming later today to help out a little bit more. So putting all of that information in one place so that whether my husband was calling them or he was having a problem or I was calling them and I was having a problem, we could both put it into the same log so that then when I had to go and make the call and argue for the fact that we were not getting the service we were paying for and therefore we wanted a refund or we wanted a credit on our account, boy, was that a hell of a lot more effective because I could tell them exactly the days and exactly the times when we were having problems and who we talked to and the whole 9 yards. So those are some examples of the personal ways in which we use it. On the business side, there's so many things I love about it. I'm curious, how many of you are using Evernote at all, and what are you using it for? Does anybody want to kind of pop into the chat? How many people are like, you have an account and you don't use it at all? And while you kind of answer me on that one, I'm going to pull up my notes here and my thoughts on the different ways that we use this for business. So, Amanda, you are using it. You using it personally or using it professionally? To organize jobs and resources. Okay, great, fantastic. Both. Okay, so yeah, so I use it both as well. More for work. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate that. So for us in our business, basically I run a company that provides organizing services as well as productivity services. So I have staff members who do hands-on organizing, and then I myself do primarily productivity. So what I like to refer to as the intangible organizing. It's time and tasks and priorities and decisions and email and all that kind of stuff. So in business, we use it for creating client notebooks. So particularly for our organizing clients, we'll create a new notebook for each client. And in that notebook, we'll keep the plan of action. We'll keep a list of resources that we might have recommended to that client. We will put basically any like summaries. Thank you for the hearts. I appreciate that. Hi, Brian. Nice to have you join us. We'll put summaries of the photos that we've taken at the client's house, so like at the beginning and the middle and the end. If there's like a resource that we wanted to recommend to a particular client, one of the other features I really love about Evernote is the ability to annotate. Hello from Pennsylvania. Nice to have you here, Brian. Thanks. The ability to annotate images so that you can find it, if you find an image of something that you're like, oh, this particularly is what I'm talking about. So I've annotated images for so many different purposes, for client notebooks, for swipe files. So if there's somebody who's doing some great marketing or some great copy or whatever, I'll do a swipe file and then I'll annotate an image and say, this is what I particularly like about this, to be able to communicate with my team more effectively. I've annotated images for process documentation. So for instance, you have a particular procedure that you're trying to outsource. How do you do the annotation? Let me show you, Amanda. That'll help. Absolutely. Let me answer that for you. Spinning around, and we'll go in here to Evernote, and I will show you how we've done this. Let me go into, I think this, is this going to be the best one? Let me go in here. Do I have any annotated images in here? Here we go. Here's an annotated image. So, so this is one of our kind of process documentation notebooks that my team uses. So for a particular process we do in terms of following up with clients, basically these are screenshots that I took out of Infusionsoft, which is our our CRM and our email system. And I was trying to help the team see specifically where they needed to go to do something. So I took the screenshot and then I just dragged it into Evernote. Essentially, you can just drag the image directly onto the note that you want it to be in. And then basically you right click on it if you're on a PC. On a Mac, I do a 2-finger click and click annotate this image. And it pulls up a separate screen that just has the image and then a variety of different types of annotations that you can do. So you can see what I had here was a big box, but I can put an arrow, like for instance, if I want to be pointing to that big box, I can put a big arrow, or I can say, you know, look here. And it will, and then basically I can move that around. It's like, okay, if I'd really rather have it there, that's great. Thank you for the hearts. I really appreciate it. So that I can help really call out specifically what I'm trying to bring someone's attention to for that step of the process. So that was step 1, and then you can see I did another little screenshot here for step 2, and I annotated it again. Love Evernote, don't we all? Okay, well, I do. I find it to be really, really helpful. And this annotation feature is really phenomenal. Thank you guys so much for the hearts. Sincerely, I'm really grateful to you. I love seeing those hearts, knowing I'm giving you good value that you're grateful for. So that's one of the things that I love about it is to be able to really kind of just, here's what you're looking for, and be able to provide that visual information, whether it's to a client about the product that you're wanting to recommend to them, or the particular, like, we're looking for something that looks like this, and you're showing the example. Do you have a go-to source for anyone just starting to use Evernote for productivity? I don't yet, but thank you for the question, because maybe I'll create one. Evernote saved my ass on the computer. Yes, hooray for having information in the cloud. Because it's definitely, it's saves it when the computers get stolen, when the computers end up in someone, it's the blue screen of death has gotten you for the last time. Having that information between Evernote and Dropbox, pretty much all of my information lives in the cloud somewhere. So, shout out for Dropbox too. I'm a big fan of both. Dropbox, and let me address that, because I think that's an important thing. Let me spit for a second. Because some people, and I remember when I was first kind of really getting serious about Evernote, I was feeling this question about, when do I use Dropbox? When do I use Evernote? I like to think of Evernote like a notebook or a collection of pages in a file. So I use Dropbox for things where, like, the formatting is important. I need to make sure it stays as a Word doc. I want to make sure that it's clean and crisp, or that I want to be able to share, like, this collection of documents with someone. Yes, you can drag and drop a document into Evernote and it will stay as a Word doc or as a PowerPoint or as an Excel. I just find that when it's existing already as a document, I would rather have it in Dropbox most of the time and be able to share a specific Dropbox folder versus Evernote, which is what I think of as like a live notebook. So does it sync with the app on your phone? Yes, Evernote will sync with the app on your phone. Dropbox equals a file cabinet, Evernote equals files. So yes, that's one way to think about it, is I almost think about Evernote as equaling a notebook. So it's if I wanted to have a notebook with a collection of references or a collection of resources or a collection of my thoughts, then that's when I go for Evernote. Whereas if I'm creating documents that I'm going to be repurposing or reusing or sharing with a lot of people, that's when I put them in Dropbox. So hopefully that kind of helps create that little bit of distinction. If there are any other questions about that, feel free to ask. So essentially, for those of you who may have joined late, my name is Erin Elizabeth Wells. I am the intentionality expert. I'm a productivity strategist. Write pages in notebook, clippings, pictures, resources. Yes, so that's what Evernote's great for, is getting those pages into a notebook, the clippings, the pages, the resources, the notes that, I'm grabbing stuff off the top of my head while I'm in a meeting, that kind of stuff. Deb, great, Deb, thanks, cool. So that's kind of the distinction between the two. But in business, we use Evernote. We basically, for those of you who jumped on late, at the beginning I was talking a lot about using Evernote personally. Now I'm shifting more into using it for business. We use it for process documentation. I love using it for our editorial calendar. And in fact, I'm doing a webinar later today. If anybody's interested, you can go to chosencourse.com/edcalendar. chosencourse.com/edcalendar. If somebody's willing to put that into the notes, that'd be fantastic. And I'm specifically going to be talking in more depth about how we use Evernote and Asana combined for our editorial calendar. So hi, welcome. Glad to have you here. Be posh. Nice to have you here. Otherwise, for a summary of what I'm talking about today, as well as a link to the replay, you can go here, chosencourse.com/Periscope. Hi, Be Posh. Nice to have you. Thank you so much for putting that in there. chosencourse.com/edcalendar. I really appreciate it. That's if you want to sign up for the webinar I'm doing later this afternoon, specifically on Evernote and Asana as an editorial calendar, how I use that. Because we have 2 different blogs for 2 different divisions of my company. I have 8 different people who are working on our blog on a regular basis. And so basically, I'm giving you guys a kind of glimpse behind the curtain of how we use it effectively to manage our blog. So if you're interested in that, go ahead to chosencourse.com/edcalendar and sign up. Love to have you there. But essentially, Evernote, we use it for process documentation. We use it for our editorial calendar. We use it for client notebooks. I also love using it. I love using Evernote for voice recording meetings. Yes, I completely agree with you. So if I'm like at a networking meeting, a lot of times I will take my notes directly into Evernote and I'll click the recording. And, understanding, trying to protect copyright, this is for my purposes only. I'm not going to go plaster this across the world. We want to respect people's, creation. If you bought a ticket to show up at that meeting, you don't want to, then broadcast what was at the content of the meeting everywhere. But I'll use it to review later. Or if there was a particular section that I want to go back to and remember exactly how someone phrased something, then having that recording is phenomenal. I'll also sometimes use it if there's a particular piece that was relevant that I want my VA to hear, that it's a chance for me to get her on page, right, for my own notes, exactly. So if it's something that I want her to hear something about how this went, then it's a way for me to be able to share that information with my team so that we can be aligned, so that we can be more effective together. So thank you for adding that. I really appreciate that. Another thing that I love using Evernote for is creating funnel copy. So I don't know how many of you are entrepreneurs doing online marketing of one kind or another where you're needing to create a sequence of emails. Sure, yeah. So I use Evernote, and let me show you an example. I'm going to hop on over here and go into, so if I'm doing a webinar and I need to do follow-up messages, the marketing messages promoting it, and then follow-up messages after it, then I'll create a specific notebook just for that webinar. And what I'll create in it is what they call it a pillar note. And I'll put in here's the email marketing sequence, here's the pre-event nurture sequence. Deb, thank you so much for inviting people. I really appreciate that. I'll put the post-event nurture sequence. So essentially, I'll figure out my whole plan for communications around a particular launch or a particular webinar event. And then I'll create a pillar note, and then each one of these individual listings is actually a link to a specific email text that then my assistant can take and basically copy and paste and put directly into. How do you do the table in the pillar note? Okay, I will tell you that happily, Amanda, no problem. But basically, each one of these then becomes an email that my assistant can go into Infusionsoft and copy and paste and format, and all I have to do is write it. It's phenomenal. It makes me so amazingly happy. So how do you create the pillar note? So essentially, you start with a blank note, and you title it whatever you want. Test pillar note. I'll do for the moment. Pillar note. I'll even try and type properly. And then up at the top, and now let me acknowledge yet again, if for those of you who may have joined late, It'll look slightly different. I'm on a Mac. It may look slightly different on a PC, but somewhere up at the top you should see something that's like a little grid-like thing that is the way to add a table. And you can decide how many columns across, how many rows down, how big a table do you want. And you can always add more later. So you add your table, and then you put in whatever you want your titles to be. So like this would be the date the thing is going out. This would be the topic. This would be the audience. Then sometimes I'll do things like drafted and finalized. Candace, thank you so much for inviting followers. I appreciate it. I'm glad I'm giving you guys good enough content that you're happy to share it with others. Essentially, Danielle, hi, welcome. Glad to have you here. So you create your topics or your titles of each piece, and then, so let me say, this is email number 1 would be my first one, and then this was email number 2. And so then what happens is you create separate notes for each of those emails. So let's pretend that this is email number 1. Basically, you can grab the note link. Danielle, hello from Michigan. Hi, Michigan. How's it going? Griffin Girl, nice to have you here. We're talking about Evernote. We're talking specifically about how to use it for managing and organizing your email flow for launches, just to bring you up to speed. But essentially, we're talking about pillar notes in particular. How do you create them? And so here was my test. Hello from North Carolina, Lindsay. Great to have you here. Thank you. So here's my test. And then if this is email number 1, I grab the copy note link. So I grab the link right on time. Good, thank you. I grab the link for this note, and then I go into my pillar note and I highlight the text that I want that attached to. And you can either do a right click, go down to link, and click add. I've learned the keyboard shortcut of just doing Command K on the Mac, so I tend to just go fast and go Command K, and it pops up a little box that you can then paste that link into. So we click OK on that, and that's what makes it a live link, so that then when you click on that text, it takes you directly to that note. Hey, Arkansas. Great, Deb. Thanks. Oh, I love learning how to use. I often refer to myself as a gadget girl. I love gadgets. I love it when they make my life easier. I will also say productivity is only 1/3 about the gadgets. It's the other 2 pieces that people sometimes aren't paying attention to as much are and let me pull this camera this directly to you guys, because this is such an important thing. I'm actually going to be scoping about this later on. The tech is so valuable. It's so useful. I love it. But it's not enough by itself, because we also have to have the habit of using it. We have to know how to interact with it effectively. We have to go and trust and use it and interact with it daily. And we need to have our mindset in the right place. So I talk about the 3 components of excellence. Hey, Ms. Jackson, nice to have you here. The 3 components of excellence, which, in my opinion, first is the mindset. Second comes the tools and figuring out which tool is the right tool. You're on it. Thanks, Altrima. Thank you very much. So first is the mindset, second is the tool, and third is the habit. And by building one on top of each other, that's how we really get to excellence as far as productivity. Please give name of this again. Evernote. Evernote's been around since 2008. Thank you very much, Lindsay. Appreciate that. So it's essentially a digital notebook. That's how I like to think of it. You could think of it as a digital file cabinet if you want, but I think thinking of it as a digital notebook is the best. So thank you guys so much for the hearts. This is like my 5th or 6th scope ever, and this is the most hearts I've ever gotten. So I'm really grateful to you. Thank you so much. I'm glad that I'm delivering some really valuable stuff for you. So at the beginning, we talked about personal use cases. Now we're talking about business use cases. Hi, SLCT Seattle. Nice to have you there. Or even a scrapbook. Sure, absolutely. So it can be a great place to put like those cool things you're coming across. Whether they're, maybe it's pictures that you're grabbing from Facebook of major events for your friends and family. Like that'd be an interesting use. I've never thought about doing that before, but you could. So maybe you've got someone who's having a wedding soon, and you want to kind of grab and create a little digital scrapbook of like their whole little journey as they plan the wedding, and then share that with them at the end. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? I think that might be kind of fun. So that, they're sharing stuff on Facebook or whatever, and you're getting a chance to kind of swipe it. I keep my swipe file for marketing. Yes, Candace, me too. I do that too. I love doing that because it allows me to see like what was it about this that worked for me. So BetJet, Evernote is on my to-do list to learn. Okay, good. Well, then you're in the right place because that's essentially what we're talking about today. So if you joined us in the middle, you might want to catch the beginning for the replay, or the replay for the beginning. My English just went out the door. Sorry about that. Product pics and info. Yes. So I use it for that with our clients. So if there's my staff works with clients on organizing their homes and their offices. And so we'll frequently have a client notebook and we'll capture product pics and sometimes annotate that picture saying this specifically is the one I'm looking at that I think might be really useful for you, that kind of thing. And we find that to be really, really helpful, really valuable. So we've talked about personal use cases. We've talked about business use cases. I'm trying to think, another place in business where I've used Evernote a lot that's been really helpful is in our hiring process. So if you're looking to hire team members, if you're posting, we do a lot of hiring on Craigslist or similar kinds of places. And I don't know, how many of you have ever hired on Craigslist? Has anybody ever had that experience? What generally happens for us whenever we do a hiring round is we get inundated by a whole bunch of people who are applying who may or may not actually be a good fit. But we're trying to be organized in tracking and following up and being respectful. Can you add to the table after you've created? Amanda, yes. Yes, you can. So my favorite way to add to the table is basically you can just right click and go to table properties. And then you can either add a column or add a row, whatever you want. Scared to now. Deb, what are you scared about? Just help me know what the reference was. But yes, you can add table. You can add to the table by adding a column, adding a row, whatever works, whatever is necessary for you. Also, one of the things I love to do if I just need to add a row, I'll put my cursor. Let me actually show you this because I think you'll appreciate it. There we go. A little laggy. So we'll go back here to my test pillar note. If you put your cursor in the last box on the right and then click tab, it will add another, oops, sorry about that. It's telling me I'm supposed to be wrapping up and having my lunch, but I'm hanging with you guys and we're having fun, so I'll get to lunch in a minute. So if you put your cursor in the final box on the right, it will add another row. And you can literally do that over and over and over again, and it will just add row, add row, add row. Now, if you want to add, if you have a bunch of stuff in there, for instance, let me go into here. If I wanted to add a row in the middle, that's when I would do like the right-click, tables, insert row above, so that if I wanted to add it in here. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you guys. I love this feature of Evernote to be able to do the tables and do the pillar notes, but the tables don't always work the way you would expect them to if you're used to Excel. They're just not that consistent. So there are some frustrations we've had over the years with, particularly when like a member of my team who's on a PC is trying to change the table. Sometimes we get some pretty wonky funkin' looking things that happen. So just an FYI, it's a minor frustration, minor limitation. Doesn't mean it's not possible, just means it might end up getting a little wonky or funky. So, FYI, want you to know, it's one of the things we've been irritated by occasionally. So if you have other questions, feel free to about Evernote, about how we can use Evernote, about what else you do. Danielle, premium is very inexpensive, may or may not be worth it. So yeah, there's basically, multiple levels. They've just changed this recently. There's a free level that's kind of limited, but if you're just trying to get used to it, start there. Then there's a premium level that's very inexpensive. It's like $50 a year. And it gets you a larger amount of bandwidth for uploading, particularly if you're going to do some of those like audio recordings like we were talking about before. It's worth it for that. But it gets you a wider amount of bandwidth, and that's usually the most important thing, as well as, I think, a few additional features. Then you can go all the way up to the top, which is what they call Evernote for Business. And that's actually what my team uses, partially because I'm an Evernote business certified consultant. So, part of my certification, they wanted to make sure I knew exactly how to use Evernote for Business. Candace, Evernote has great customer service. Yes, they do. I completely agree with you, Candace. They have been really phenomenal on answering questions and being on top of things as they come up. So the Evernote for Business, I think it's the time when you'd be interested in that, when it would make sense, is if you're running a business with multiple people in it, and you want to make sure that any content that your team members create stays with the business. Because essentially you can create restoring notes. Yes, absolutely. They can sometimes do that too. If a team member of yours creates something in their Evernote personal notebooks or in their Evernote personal account, then essentially they keep it. They own it. And so if they were ever to leave the company, then they'd be taking some of that intellectual property, some of that business asset with them. And that's when it makes a lot of sense to upgrade and look at Evernote for Business. Because if you want to make sure that anything your team members, hey Wayne, nice to have you here, anything your team members create stays with the company, that's when you want to look into upgrading all the way to Evernote for Business. But for most people, and certainly most solopreneurs, premium is very affordable. It's like $50 a year. It's absolutely worth it. There are a bunch of additional, being able to do offline notebooks, that kind of stuff that it offers that is just really, really valuable, really helpful. So I think we've covered most of what I was planning on covering today about Evernote. I'm happy to answer your questions. For those of you who may have jumped on last minute, like Wayne, sorry to have you here at the end. I'm going to be posting the replay to this later today, as well as you can obviously just get it on Periscope. But there's a summary of what we've covered, as well as we're going to be posting the replay. You can find it here, chosencourse.com/Periscope. And in fact, you can find links to a bunch, not all, but a bunch of my past scopes. For those of you who may not have ever been on with me before, I know I recognize a couple of names from past times. Wayne, absolutely, rewatch. My name is Erin Elizabeth Wells. I'm the intentionality expert and a productivity strategist. I scope pretty much daily these days. I'm going to start doing it even more frequently, I think, just because I love the interaction. I love getting to talk with you guys and really, kind of explore this world together. But I scope primarily on productivity-related topics. So time, tasks, email. I like to call it the intangible realm of organizing, goals, decisions. How do we choose and determine our priorities? So that's what my world is about. You can catch the past scopes at Chosen Course, chosencourse.com/Periscope. Or, as I mentioned earlier, in just a little while, actually very soon, which is probably why I need to jump off, I am going to be doing an entire webinar on using specifically Evernote and Asana as an editorial calendar. So, thank you, McGee, E.R. McGee, Era McGee. Glad, thank you so much. Glad this has been helpful for you, Amanda, absolutely. So if you aren't already, make sure you're following me on an Android swipe up, on an iOS swipe right to left, or left to right. And click the follow button so that you will hear next time I'm scoping, because I'm starting to do this a lot more, and I'm delighted to have you all on. Thank you guys so much for your questions, for your comments, for your hearts. Thank you. I really, truly, truly appreciate it. Candace, thank you. chosencourse.com/edcalendar. So yes, you can go on there, and that's what will get you in just about a half an hour when we're going to go live. So we'll look forward to seeing some of you there. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys on a future scope. So thanks so much. Take care.